Now, I will invite you all to join either of the two concurrent plenary sessions. I wish you all successful session, and you can choose one of the two sessions based on your interest, speakers, and topic, and you can also switch between the two sessions. We have the plenary session number 1 with Dr. Rania, running a virtual, running a patient organization virtually, and the second one, co-creation digital solution with healthcare consumers. I wish you good session.
Hello, everyone. So thrilled to be here, and it's the last day, so I hope you're keeping your focus. Well, I'm going to take you in this journey of running a patient organization virtually by keeping a continued focus on objectives and communication. Just quick information about me. I have been a patient advocate for the last 13 years, leading now Fadia Survive and Thrive International Cancer Association, among other things. But being a patient advocate, it means many things, not only being connected to patients, but all stakeholders in the cancer industry. And it's multifactorial, as we will see in the next few minutes, the allocated time in the session. So I hope you enjoy it. So let's get started by having the agenda. I will go through these 5 main points, and I'm going to give them proper attention at a time. So stay tuned. Let's start by this question for you, and please try to be as interactive as you can. In your opinion, what is the most important purpose in a patient organization from the following? The following is coming. First, advocating for patients and their loved ones. Second, organize awareness campaigns for both patients and the public. Third, addressing side effects and mobilizing resources for quality of life research and aspects. And the last option is all of the above. So the floor is yours. Please, in a few seconds, decide which one is the most important for you. There's no right and wrong answer, by the way. The question is displayed, and these are the alternatives. Do we have any answers yet? So I'll give it a few more seconds in the favor of time. Okay. I guess we will start the first part of the session. I hope you would be alerted for the second one. It's just an introductory questions about the objectives of the patient organization. So for the first session, or the first part of this session, I will talk about patient organizations in general, what should be or known purposes and activities. To start with, patient organization, patient advocacy organizations is relatively immature concept in the Middle East, and not to mention in Asia compared to the Western world. And there are many interesting activities and purposes that get involved in that, especially especially when we talk about oncology, because it's a different story than advocacy for other diseases. It's patient advocacy, by the way, started in early years with AIDS, and then it became something very important for the patient to get involved in the decisions as equal partners in success in this journey as possible. So for most of the purposes around the world, they will be revolve around the main four pillars of cancer control with plus and minus. It starts usually with prevention, if there are any efforts can be done to prevent cancer and any other chronic diseases. And then if that's not possible, moving to the next pillar, which is early detection and diagnosis. Then the third would be treatment itself and being accurate in that as possible and in near of end of life, and actually should be throughout the cancer journey life, palliative care. So most of the purposes will be more or less the controlling category or the main category for the purpose of patient organizations will be revolving around one of these four main pillars. The activities, though, would be targeting any phase in the journey of a cancer patient. And that journey starts from knowing that there is cancer, the evil disease, as it's called in some cultures, especially here, and then going through the journey of diagnosis and every uncertainty involved with that, and then the treatment, the pain, the palliative care, the recurrence issues. It's like huge variations of the journey when it's specific to each patient. So activities will be revolved around that. And when I said like it's specific to patient, that's the thing, that every patient is special, and that's hence the talk about the palliative care and the precision medicine should be really targeting specific patients, not the whole group. And I know now that we have the results of the first question, which is great. Can the organizers display them? It would be great. Wonderful. And very interesting, I have to say. Good, thank you for your interaction. So with this, we have the second question for you to introduce the next point. What is the most critical success factor in your mind to run a patient organization virtually? And I'm keeping this question for a few seconds for you to have the quick response code scanned. The answer will be one of the following, and I'm going to return to the previous slide in a moment. Knowledge of the state-of-the-art online management tools. Second, understanding and empathy for your organization's constituents or stakeholders. Third, recruiting the right number and caliber of volunteers for your organization. And last, utilizing the most effective ways of communications internally and externally. So let me return to the question again. What is the most critical success factor to run a patient organization virtually? And let me give you a few seconds to think about it. Okay, I hope we have answers or not yet. We will go again in favor of time, and once we have the results, we will display them before the next point. So main objectives and activities to run a successful patient organization. The previous question, I wouldn't like to call it a trick question, but it was basically to tell you what are the basics to run a successful organization virtually. Well, I don't like to exaggerate by saying there is no such thing as virtual and in person. It's like if you know someone, a friend or a business contact, and then COVID hit, you will find a way to communicate, but it's not the other way around. Like if I have the state-of-the-art WebEx, Zoom, whatever the mean for virtually connecting with someone, without having that someone or that purpose, there will be never a successful communication. So back to the basics. Actually, to run a successful organization, you need to have a focus on your objectives and activities. And in this section, I would like just to emphasize a little bit some of the objectives and activities we have been involved in at Fadia Survive and Thrive, and as a patient advocate in general. So one of the key objectives and activities revolving around prevention in cancer, and it's not a surprise in different cancer circles that I always hear that cancer is inherited, and they don't know what the meaning of inherited. And this, in the chart in your right-hand side, is a proven chart by many research that cancer is environmental disease, meaning that other environmental factors, and environmental is not the grand landscape sort of environmental. It's as the pie chart, again, the bottom one to the right shows it's between diet, tobacco use, infections, obesity, and other lifestyle choices that can trigger cancer more than the less than 5 or 10% inherited. And we are not in a prevention campaign right now, but this is one of the key issues basically to run a successful organization, is to stay in a core objective that would make a difference. And always in advocating for prevention, the public, patients, and even some of the constituents of ours cannot process the idea that everything we do from the birth to adulthood impact our equation of health, including cancer. There are switches of on and off in our genes by everything literally we do. So this has been one of the successful objectives, and as a result, activities revolving around that. And the other thing is prevention, not only for lifestyle choices like the previous two ideas, but also prevention of any complications related to infection and, God forbid, sepsis. Because prevention is really simple. Once any infection is there, it just becomes so complicated because of the compromised immune system of the patients. Also, extremely important is the focus on the quality of life. Once we try to make a difference in the quality of life of any patient, as a patient organization, as oncologist, as any health care organization, that would be the key success factor in my mind. And quality of life is really multifactorial, numerous factors involved, like by drinking lots of water, maintaining a healthy emotional health, taking care of the sugar intake, having green leafy vegetables, and take care of your activity, to name just a few examples. So these also, the quality of life aspects are very important, and preventing inflammation. So we always have this struggle between which type of activities to focus in to be successful. Are they advocating for prevention, eating 5 different colors, or addressing the side effects for primary and metastatic patients, which are huge? How to proactively addressing that. So that's one of the things that we usually struggle with to run a successful organization. So as usual, we have the results ready. So let's see how you did before the next question. If we can display them, that would be wonderful. Okay, also very interesting. It seems the crowd is going into one direction, but I'm glad that there are different balance across the factors. So ready for our next question, signifying the third segment of our presentation. Which of the following communication means are most effective in a patient organization? That would be very interesting to see. So are you ready? And I'm going back to the quick response code in a moment. Direct meetings, events, or phone calls, that's your favorite or the most effective in a patient organization in your mind, or social media platform like Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Third, mailing list, sending periodical emails and electronic newsletters. And lastly, a mobile application that is updated periodically. Which one of the four you think it's the most effective in a patient organization? And I'm going to give you a few seconds for that. I think this is straightforward. So make your mind which one is the best or the most effective for that purpose. And we are going to see how the public or the audience participants think about that. With this, we will move to this third section of the presentation, the importance of communication and the variety of activities in any patient organization. And here I'm highlighting my exposure. This basically a screenshot from our Instagram. And I'm not, by the way, insinuating that Instagram is the best communication or the most effective, by the way. It's just like one of the means, as we will come to know later in the few minutes. So in this slide, I'm showing different, I would call it snapshots, not the snapshot, the application, obviously. It's just a picture of different involvement for the means of communication. So in the top, as I highlighted just now, is obviously communicating through during COVID time, which is still through virtual meetings, virtual conferencing, which is very important to stay on the top of the happening as a patient advocate, to bring all this consensus or exposures or updates to your local or international patients as you serve them. Also, we had in-person events in the malls because that was the most possible during COVID. So that's a sample of the activities, and running both of them at the same time, running in-person and virtual events at the same time in the bottom right picture. Prior to COVID, we were able to have events for over 300 or 500 patients and their caregivers and other interested parties. It's not about the number, it's about the meaningful communication. So that's what we need to focus in the patient organization. It's not about how good our events look like, or if it's a checklist of how many, the quantity. It's about the quality and paying attention to everyone. Communicating with other counterparts, like other patient advocates, is extremely important because we validate many of the challenges and equally opportunities that are available in the cancer industry to further the quality of life and to further the advancement in making the life easier for everyone involved, and also researching in our own and speaking our mind in conferences and participating in support group with patients and with other stakeholders are extremely important, and also publishing our ideas to in the industry with peer-reviewed journals is very important as a mean of communication. So all of this collectively form the communication. It's not only with the patient. I wouldn't call communication with the patient the simple last stop, but it's the most important step. That's why we need to make sure that our message and communication is valid and evidence-based. So this is basically our Instagram account. You can check it in your free time with various activities and how they were done. With this, I would like to ask the organizers to display the results if we have them. And I think we do. Okay, so great. How did we do? Wow. So I am so glad that we favor the in-person, because really I'm also a big fan of that. As a matter of fact, the way we started as Fadia Survive and Thrive, it was in-person communication for the first time with patients without barriers or intermediary. So with this, to introduce the fourth section, running a patient organization virtually can be most effective in the following situation. So choose one situation that you think makes the management of patient organization virtually the most effective. First, patient and or volunteers are located in different far locations. The organization's activities are covering more than one geographic area or country. And third, limited resources to invite industry experts, cancer experts who are willing to volunteer online instead. And lastly, back-to-back events, both online and in person. So which one of these four would make running a patient organization virtually most effective? And back to the quick respond code for you to have quick access. So I'll leave a few seconds and move in favor of time, and then we'll see the results later. So here, I'd like just to highlight very quickly in the remaining few minutes, real world cases of leading patient organization, both in person and virtually, before concluding with the fifth and last part of this presentation. So this is an event done last month in one of the famous malls in Kuwait. And we had multi activities within that event. I would say the key, aside from everything done, is to properly recognize the volunteers with certificates of appreciation, even with recognizing them in the public, that there is no organization without them. And actually, 80% of the volunteers are people that were impacted by cancer. So it's a great motivation for them to be part of that cause, but still you need to recruit them and keep an eye on them. That's the way virtual or in person would be sustainable in a patient organization. A real world example of virtual, as I mentioned earlier, it's not only about communication with patients, it's about being connected everywhere, as much as you can, because it would be humanly impossible. But I would say the virtual space or platform allowed many of us to have increased capacity to absorb information and collaborate. So this is just an example of things done with the Union for International Cancer Control, with the ABC Global Alliance, the Embassy Metastatic Breast Cancer around the world show. Also, I was there besides summits of the industry. For me and other volunteers in the organization, it's extremely important, again, to validate our challenges, opportunities, and collaborate to find an end together. Just remember, in the virtual space, it's always through these platforms, we need to maintain a sense of well-being, and I'm going to discuss this in the next section. So before I move to that, I don't know if we have the results yet available from the previous question, or it was a difficult question. Okay, I'm seeing it displayed. Wonderful. So questions and answers later on, but hang on for a few more minutes. So that's the last question before I conclude with the last section. The following is one of the key challenges to run a patient organization virtually. So if you have been running a patient organization, but just running it virtually in the last couple of years because of a situation like COVID, what would be the most key challenge? First, back-to-back meetings, activities, burnout, like because you think virtually. Before, I would make a trip to the North America or to Asia or Europe just once in a week, but virtually I can be in 4 different continents at the same week. So the burnout, is it the key challenge? Number 2, systems failure and or lack of knowledge on how to use them. So would that be the huge challenge for you in running virtually the organization? Third, lack of human interaction and understanding. So we do run all of these virtual events and running the organization without this connection with the volunteers or constituents. And lastly, managing time and productivity effectively for your team. Which one would you think the most important challenge to run a patient organization virtually? So back to the quick respond code, and we will know the results just at the end of the presentation. So key tips in running patient-focused activities virtually. Well, they are a few to highlight here. First and foremost is to keep the empathy, understanding, and everything of specifically for patients as #1 priority at the most as the most important thing to keep an eye on, especially in running things virtually, because sometimes and I have said that in in a totally different setting aside from patients. And you can imagine patients are more important. Even in a board meeting of one of the board I sit at, we had the meeting in 2 hours, and it was just the agenda, one after the another, without even have a chance to breathe or say hello, David, Janet, whatever the board members there. And in real life, I would spend 3 days just traveling to that location to hold the board meeting. So I said, like, why not devoting half an hour just to check on each other? We are conditioned, because it's virtual, to go formal from point A to point B. So the first and foremost important tip for you is just keep an eye, understanding, empathy for your constituents, patients first, but everyone else, basically. We need to understand them. And this is a fun statistics in a pie chart about virtual meetings, just to keep an eye on that. The pink highlighted part, which is small, waiting for the meeting to start, the orange paying attention, actually, and then the green is speaking. I just need to fast forward to the majority of the pie chart is telling someone they are on mute. It's just a joke, but seriously, it was like, am I heard? Do you hear me? So it's very important to know your way around any platform that you are comfortable with, because the being so advanced and having this exotic platform to use is irrelevant compared to the purpose, like getting your message across and communicating effectively with your constituents. So there are varieties of ways to communicate. Choose whatever fits you and your constituents, which are patients and other stakeholders. There is no right and wrong mean of communication, especially in the virtual setting of running the organizations. There are varieties. I have been thinking of doing an app, for example, me personally, 7 years ago, and then recognize that there are so much advancements and so much applications that it will be rather a distraction, or worse yet, putting this app there without any possibility for updates, because it would be humanly impossible. You put the app, but there are many things behind it. So it's, again, it's not about the mean, it's about how effective that would be with your constituents. Also very important is to categorize and make this fine line between different groups and your constituents from patients. Primary and metastatic patients, depending on which, again, which purpose, which activities you are focused at, are completely different than critically ill patients, and more so for children with cancer. Every category of them requires special care, special attention. And actually, we launched recently even an initiative for elderly patients with cancer, thanks to the UICC for collaborating with us on that. So the other tip would be related, other than categorizing and also paying attention to your constituents, is to use any other public domains. And that would be the newspaper, if it's something that is widely distributed in your country or in your region. In this example, the Arab Times is based in Kuwait, but it's distributed at a regional level. So we made sure that we are heard. So they attended some of our events. They knew for fact what we are doing. So these are different articles from last year and from this year events, and it's really a great platform to provide. Even it's semi-virtual, I would call it, because it provides an extra widely seen platform to get across ideas like prevention from sepsis or taking care of the elderly in those particular cases. And I regret this is only in Arabic, because I was having the Arab Times in English, and then this also widely used I would say newspaper also at the regional level, so it reach other Gulf countries. And again, talking about prevention from sepsis specifically in the left-hand side, you have to trust me for this, because I'm translating it to English basically. And the one on the right side is talking about how cancer is not one disease, is accumulation of diseases, and 90% of the cases are environmental factors, so requires huge lifestyle changes to have a sense of better quality of life. I'm not talking about the cure, because nobody reached a cure yet. My conviction is we can reach a cure by collaborating more. So Other platform I used in our capacity is to put a training course, like it's a dedicated syllabus, professional, and I'm giving you the title in English, but it's an Arabic platform with 250,000 users. So it was good to put this in a nominal price just to get also our voice heard and get the basic prevention facts available for the general public and dismiss any taboos about caring for cancer patients. So with this, I would conclude on a note, the purpose for patients or for everyone involved in cancer, because it can be a burnout for everyone involved. So it's not a hot potato game like saying, okay, the patient are the most important, but the oncologist should take the responsibility, and or the pharma companies, the nutritionists, many parties involved. For all of us, let's move wellness to well-being, and wellness is being mind and body free from any diseases, but well-being is a sense of happiness, which is an extra. So let's focus on the aspects of quality of life that would make patients perceive their journey a little bit better, even if we cannot find a cure. So that's my message to you, and I will conclude here. I hope I'm still on time, but let's see the results of the last question before we opening it to the questions and answers. Yes, great. Well, this is interesting. We have like sort of equally two answers for the first two alternatives. Well, thank you so much for interacting with these 5 questions. Really appreciated, and wonderful piece of information for all of us, I guess. And back to the organizers for running the questions and answers. And please be as interactive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rania. I think it was very good to see that you gave us a complete run over from where to start and where to end. And something that I've been also logged into the front end of the platform, and there are questions and answers going on. And one thing that has come forward, do you have an ideal promotional mix for various stages of development of organizations? Say, for instance, if it's a newly formed group, what is the ideal communications promotional mix for that? What is a good ideal mix for a middling group, that's establishing? Would you have an idea in your experience? Where would you put your money?
Well, good question, and I'm wondering who asked it, because as I emphasized from the very beginning, there is no one size fits all. I can now suggest a few that worked from experience, but that would be particular to my own case or my own focus as a patient organization. So my real advice, and it might sound like very generic, but you would thank me later for that, that really have a focus on your objective, why you exist. It's just as basic as that. I tell this in patient organization and also in my professional world, finance and investment. People always look for financial resources. I say it's about investment, it's about your idea. If it's a great idea, finance should be an issue. So if you have something to provide, communication shouldn't be an issue. Although I don't like to dismiss or or underestimate the importance of communication, because you can have a great cause, but without getting it heard, it wouldn't have the same impact. So I would say start for, if you are newly starting, it wouldn't make sense to have this sophisticated, expensive platforms. Start with something that publicly available. One of the things like a platform through LinkedIn, Instagram. Try to be as professional as possible. In some countries, Facebook is more used than Instagram. So just observe what's your audience are interacting with, and start there, and you will be great.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you're indicating investment in your own channels. I think patient goes start slow, but be professional content, and etc. Something again, it's from this. What's the role of influencers? And I will add this, my question, would you consider yourself an influencer in the region as well? So what's the role of influencers and how should one become an influencer, if you can think of that?
Well, it's it's an interesting question. If I consider me influential, it's never was the purpose. It comes organic in my journey. So I had some recognitions that say that, but again, it's not the purpose. If the question more into how to get visibility of your activities through an influential, someone that trusted by the community, and you would like them to speak or attend your event, so it will get some crowd or at least attention to your organization and activities, that would be something to do. But be careful not to be overdrifted or sidetracked by that. So in my journey, in the 13 years, the first 4 of them or 5, I was involved in this like high end support group of diplomatic housewives, I would call them. But then eventually realized that we are not keeping equal focus on the patients in attendance. So what would be the purpose at the end of the day? You have many influencers in the room, but then that's not an event for influencers. So
Yes.
I hope I answered the question.
A crisis of influencers. I really like this thing. Now, something else that you have not mentioned here. I know very often groups in the what I call the 3 M's. You know, this is the message. Then you've got your messenger, and then the medium. Very often people are concentrating on the medium, but reduce attention on the messenger and the message. What would you look at? What is important to you from the 3 M's as an initial group? Is it developing those messages properly, or is it choosing the right messengers, as we have already discussed about influences? What's your role? Because I think for why I'm saying this is for particularly national cancer control plans, should patients be the main messengers? That's what I came to. Thank you.
Well, it's not, I wouldn't call them the messenger, because messenger involves that you have a message, you have a receiver, and you are just communicating that without having any decision. It's not a messenger. It's you are equal partners in the success of this journey. It's humanly impossible, for example, for an oncologist to explain how difficult is the journey and the treatment side effects and what to expect for each and every patient. It's just humanly impossible. Also, I'm not dismissing the importance of checking everything medical, any medical related issue with the treating oncologist, but there are things that patients learn for the first time, and they always have this anger or irritation or challenge. Why I'm not told that from the beginning? And that's the role of patient advocates. So it's more of educational learning experience rather than just a message. But if it comes to a message, it has to be evidence-based, not to provide any false hope, and it has to be very simple and simplified even extra for the patient and the public. Because remember, patients are from different walks of life. They are not trained as a researcher to see if this is valid or not, and they can take the information from you as granted. So that's a huge responsibility for all of us, not just to say anything. Even if it's a headline of a research, it might be out of its context, very fatal. So that's my idea.
And the last one, I think, again, from the front end of things, rehabilitation and palliative care. I think very often we have advocacy meetings as this. How do we communicate palliative care differently? You know, we know this is, and I know, for instance, in Kuwait, you have Beit Abdallah, which is about terminally ill
for children,
people.
though.
Yeah, and yeah, for children, for last stages. And they have a beautiful hospital, amazing stuff I visited. Is there a way to make palliative care places or hospices, the message much better?
Yeah,
is that a faith-based?
It's a great question, but as a patient advocate, I have different conviction about that. It's important to have this nice hospice, like end-of-life care for elderly, for children, but the one you're indicating is just for children. There's other palliative care setting for elderly patients, but the way, from the little I know, in the last 13 years, and even talking to scientists in pain management, it's not only about medications to give towards the end of life. It's something that should be managed from time 0, not even time 1, and the cancer journey of any patient. So palliative care, I know it is perceived, even anyone sent to palliative care, it's just a death sentence. Like, okay, that's what we reach. It's the end of life. Good luck. So sometimes it's ineffective because of that very purpose. They are humans. They overthink. It's a life-threatening disease. So there are so much sensitivities and issues unsolved with the palliative care, especially in this region.
Yes.
And around the world, also from my exposure. And there will never be something that would prepare someone to deal with their end of life. Let's face it. But
thank you. That's the most difficult message. I think there are no experts in that. I'm so
yes.
thankful for you. You have humbly said that. I think that there's no expert. There's no way to tell bad news, and there's no way. I mean, you can do everything, but let's pray.
Yeah. So it's a journey. It's that just my message here, or my humble opinion is not to wait until it's too late to give this challenging news that's it. I cannot continue this journey with you anymore. And it's all of a sudden, it's abrupt. If there is information, I'm not saying to scare the patients from the beginning. It's just a balance that should be put forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're all nearly out of time. For first, I thank you very much. I think you've really brought honesty and clarity into the debate, and that's very refreshing for us. Secondly, I think the professionalism with which you have delivered is absolutely brilliant. I must thank the audience who have taken part in the polls and given their honest opinion on how they feel things. And I think you will continue. I think everybody must congratulate the Novartis team here. They've put on a very good, meaningful program for us, and made sure patient engagement was through the scenes, through planning, through delivery. And I think this session has proven that if you do that, you get very good sessions. And yes, if there are any mistakes I've made or others have made, I'm apologetic for that. As we said, to err is human, to forgive is divine. And it is, we thank you all for this. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks.